I wanted to go over some of the new guitar cabinet options that are in the latest Evolution guitar libraries. There's a lot of really cool options, and it gives you a lot of control over the tone of the guitar. So let's go to the tone section of the interface and scroll down to the very bottom. And if you click on the very first drop-down menu, you'll see a large list of different guitar cabinet options. Now, these first ones are labeled Legacy because these were the guitar cabinet options included in the very first Evolution guitar releases. So we left those in, and then that way if you've got any snapshot presets that still use those guitar cabinets, you'll still be able to load those up and they'll sound the same. After that, we have all of the new guitar cabinet options, starting with these two mini cabinets. Now, these are barely even practice amps. I mean, they're the type of guitar cabinet that you put on your belt loop, but they still get a kind of cool sound. Let me try this one so I can show you what I'm talking about. Now, if I change the perspective to kind of a closer position, it's not so tinny. Of course, it's still tinny because it's a tiny speaker there, but it's still kind of useful for, some funky guitar tones. So moving on, if you look down the list, the guitar cabinets are organized in terms of the size of the guitar cabinet. So we start out with the 1x8 speakers, so that would be a single 8-inch speaker. Moves on to the 1x10s, 1x12s, there's one 1x15, all the way up to the very largest 4x12s. So that's a guitar cabinet that has four 12-inch speakers. So, obviously you're going to get some pretty serious volume out of those speakers or those guitar cabinets. But, because of the magic of recording, it's not really as much of a matter of volume, because you have close miking, so you can bring up the volume of those smaller cabs. So it's really a tonal choice. In addition to the different cabinet choices, we also have a couple different mic choices, and then also the mic placement. And you get a lot of different guitar tones, even just with those subtle differences. So let's try out this cabinet. This is a really cool vintage 60s blackface guitar cabinet. I'll let you guess which brand of guitar cabinet that is. And so here's what that sounds like. Now this is the center mic position, and if I just switch that to an off-axis position, you can already hear a difference. Let's switch back and forth, make it a little bit more audible. This has a little bit more highs, a little brighter, and then the off-axis adds in some bass and just kind of mellows it out a little bit. So if I switch to like the back of the cabinet, you'll really hear a big difference. And then let's go on to some other cabinets, and so you can hear what else is included there. Let's see. This one's a pretty bright cabinet. This is also a vintage. This is from the 70s. It's works really well for clean tones and jazz. It's a pretty bright cabinet, in my opinion. Well, especially bright using the center mic position. Let's move it to an off-axis angled mic position. And then I'm going to switch to using this mic, which, this is a ribbon mic. So you can emphasize certain qualities of the cabinet using the EQ. It's pretty bright right now just because I've got the highs turned up. So if I turn those back down, you'll kind of hear more of that jazz sound. So anyway, let's go through some of the other cabinets. What you'll notice, like I mentioned before, there's not really a volume difference, but there's a big tonal difference. And I think what you'll find is using these smaller cabinets will give you more character, especially in the kind of mid frequencies and the low mids. There's a lot more resonance, in that frequency range. And as you move to the larger cabinets, you get a flatter signal, You'll find that resonant frequency kind of drops and, gets lower, which makes it really great for, say you add in a lot of distortion, but you don't want it muddy. You want it a really clean, or not clean. You want it a very crisp, pristine distortion. You'd probably want to gravitate towards these larger guitar cabinets, just to give you a kind of a flatter signal to work with. Let me turn off the spring reverb and introduce some distortion so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'll turn off the spring. I'm going to turn on a distortion pedal, put everything on 10. And yeah, let's do the same for the compressor. And now we're, because we're pretty much diming all of our settings. You'll want to compensate for that in the output volume of the amp effect. So let's start low and then bring up the volume. Now, just for comparison, let's try one of the smaller amps. And here, there's a lot more bass in the low mids. So if you want to kind of compensate for that, you could always use a more distant mic position and then go to the EQ and, turn down the bass frequencies. Let me try playing some lead stuff, and for that I am going to change the fretting position to something more realistic. You'd be playing higher up on the fretboard. And then just so it's not so dry sounding, I'll turn on one of the spring reverbs. And again, you'll notice there's a lot of different options for, different springs. There are lists out there if you want to figure out which cabinet includes which spring, and then that way you can match them, according to how they are in real life. Or you can just go through the spring reverbs and choose the one that you like the best. So here's what that sounds like. And then just for comparison, let's go back to one of the larger cabinets. So this is actually a bass cabinet, but, somewhere along the line, guitarists started plugging into their bass players' cabs and said, hey, this sounds really good, it's my cabinet now. So here's what that sounds like. And let's see, what else? So this, being a larger cabinet, we could probably bring the, bass back up. Being a bass cabinet, let's add in some highs. And let's try a different mic. So the 57 is a dynamic, it really gets... I feel like there's less bass in the 57, picks up less bass. Definitely less than the 2A, which is a large diaphragm condenser. And of course, you can always, change the EQ or change the mic position to also get, that effect that you want on the frequencies. Like here's the angled edge perspective. So I'm still using the same cabinet, and you can hear it really sounds very different. That one's nice. Let me try bringing in some power chords. Not power chords. Let me try bringing in some palm mutes. So I'm going to map this to kind of a lower velocity range. While we're at it, we may as well add in some squeals, also known as pinch harmonics or artificial harmonics. Let's just use this. This is the random squeal articulation. This we just sampled whichever squeal was kind of the closest, whichever harmonic node was the closest to the pick position. There's also an octave squeal articulation, and that's, sampled strictly at the octave. So now if I play a high velocity note, it'll trigger a squeal. Anyway, this video is probably long enough. I just wanted to go through a bunch of the different cabinets and, kind of show you what some of the controls do, as well as kind of giving you an idea of how I approach creating a guitar tone from scratch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.